Welcome to another RaiderPower.com mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm joined once again by senior writer Joe Yeager. Joe, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. How you doing, Jared?
All right. I want to say happy 4th of July. I definitely want to say, thank you to all you servicemen and women out there who can make all our barbecues and vacations possible for this great free country we live in. I know y'all on the right-wingers forum will debate some of that, but that's how I feel about it anyways. We're going to dive into y'all's questions. Great stuff once again this week. First one comes from H-Town59. He simply asked, where is Connor Wilson? I actually do have some good updates for y'all on several 2014 recruits. I'll get to Connor Wilson, but I've heard Dominique Robertson, the JUCO from Riverside, offensive tackle, Shaq Davis, and your guy, our guy, but I know you're really high on him, Brandon Thorpe. All are expected in this summer too. Now they're not, as far as I know, they're not quite there yet, but or on campus yet, but they are all expected on campus, that's amazing. Pretty much all the JUCO guys are going to be on campus at least, so that's amazing. Connor Wilson, the only thing I've heard is that they don't expect him here this summer. I can't get anybody to elaborate further. I can't really get anybody to go on the record with their name on it, but what I've heard is Connor Wilson is not expected this summer. I don't know about as far as the fall, but it doesn't sound good, to be honest. So, and I wish I had the story behind it, but I don't. I really don't. Good question, though. Overall, if you would say with Nigel Beth on his situation, which we'll get into some, and him being booted and Connor Wilson not being there, but getting all the JUCO offense and defensive linemen in, I think most Texas Tech fans would take that. Mm-hmm. Next question is from TTU Gunslinger 84. He wants to know the status of some of the 2013 signees, the recruits, including some of the red shirts. For example, he brought up Cody Hayes. He's a guy who I covered in high school, Joe. Really athletic guy. He came in about 275, all solid, almost no fat. Very athletic guy. I also covered him in track and the discus. He was a discus and shot put thrower, very successful in those events. He's a guy who I talked to Coach Hayes about during the spring, and it's not an athletic or a physicality problem. It's more of just being able to go full speed, not having to think about things. So while he may be kind of buried on the depth chart of the offensive line, he's definitely a guy they figure to continue his development and to figure in either offensively or maybe even on the defensive line at some point if they need him. He definitely has that ability. I know there was a guy or two that stood out for you from the 2013 class in spring. Joe, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I guess the main guy would probably be the cornerback, DePaul. Yeah. I think a lot of people probably expected that he wasn't even going to redshirt because there were a lot of people who were really high on that guy coming out of Monday. But he did redshirt. But that's a guy who's he's putting it together there towards the end of the spring. He's definitely got the speed and the athleticism. Newbold is in front of him right now. But I would not be at all surprised if that switches around before the year is through.
And there are a couple other guys that you asked about, or a couple other guys in that class that were definitely worth looking into. So let me look real quick.
Thomas and Outlaw, maybe?
Yeah, Outlaw and Thomas, they're both basically, they're projected as backups coming out of the spring. Definitely there to provide some depth, I think. And once again, in the same conversation I had with Coach Hayes about Cody Hayes, they're developing for sure. A lot of athleticism, a lot of potential, but not necessarily ready to hit that big stage. So we'll definitely continue to track their progress for you. Next question, Captain Popsicle. He wants to know if you
what's behind that.
I know, right? Well, if you see his avatar, with the lady eating a popsicle, that might tell some of it. it's a long question, but he saw the recruiting update I did to the board and noticed there wasn't a lot of new offers out. Well, right now it's a dead period, of course, but they do have over 100 offers out, and he wanted to know if we see a new wave of offers going out. And I don't know if wave is the right term. I think at this point they're going to methodically keep adding guys to, depending on what happens with their board. When guys commit, both to Tech and somewhere and elsewhere, they'll update their board, and they'll start going to their second, third, and then in JUCO tiers, who guys they're already in contact with, but they haven't officially offered yet. And then Captain Popsicle wanted, as a bonus, name top 3 guys we should expect to see with an offer in the future. Well, there's one guy who I know Tech has visited a couple times, and Derek Young, who covers the Kansas area, that kind of area of the Midlands for us for Scout.com. Him and I have been in contact a lot about Coffeyville cornerback Wesley Bailey. He's actually a highly coveted guy, but there are some grade issues. He's not that he's a horrible student, but he's borderline. So everyone's just kind of hedging their bets and waiting to see if this guy's going to for sure qualify and be available. But I know that he's a guy who is very interested in Texas Tech. I wouldn't be surprised if as soon as Tech offered that he would commit, even though he is coveted. And then the tight end position, Tech's really looking for the right fit at tight end. I'm not saying they want to replace Jason Morrow, because how many of those Jason Morrows are out there? The guy was a specimen. But they're definitely looking for a big target to play that position that Morrow did so well last year. And a couple of guys to keep in mind. One is a guy from Ennis who most Tech fans should be very familiar with. Obviously some players throughout the history that have come from Ennis. And then Deshaun Johnson, obviously the 2014 signee. But this guy is Donta Thompson. He's 6'5". He's only 200 pounds, so he'll have to bulk up. But he's been clocked at a 4.6. So, I mean, you could definitely see the tools there. Tech has contacted him, but hadn't offered him yet. But he's a guy you could see. Another guy is Derry Ruth. He's more of a project. He doesn't have any offers yet. He's from Pearland Dawson, but he is a pretty big target, very athletic, a guy you could see. They also have been going after JUCO guys in Arkansas, JUCO guys in California, all looking who you could see offer at that tight end position. And one more, I've been talking forever on this, but one more, defensive tackle Jordan Johnson. I interviewed him. The TCU managing editor interviewed him recently. He is a 6'5", 305-pound monster defensive tackle. He had a pretty good season last year for Garland, Lakeview Centennial, but he's really been killing it at camps. He's just been destroying whoever they put in front of him. He's another guy who's a grade concern. Everyone's waiting to see if he's going to qualify. He basically had a horrible freshman year where he blew off a semester his freshman year, and he's been trying to make it up ever since. So I think he will. I really do. I think he will. So let's get into a question. We'll have you talk here for a little bit. From Syntex wants to know, will there be a Big 12 team in the playoffs this year? And if so, who do you think that's going to be?
Well, I mean, this is one year where I think for the first time in the last several years, there's clearly an odds-on favorite to win the Big 12, and it's Oklahoma. And I think they have a shot at it, but it's borderline. It's kind of iffy, and maybe that had something to do with Dorial Beckham Green and that situation up there. That's the kind of guy that could put them right over the top as to whether they make it or not. But Oklahoma's a real strong possibility for making that playoff. I tell you that.
I saw what you posted. Now, this is kind of off topic, but what did you think about that? Which just broke today, Thursday. What did you think about? There's been a lot of talk of Stoops being a good guy, which I don't know about that necessarily. I've met him. I don't know if he's a good guy or not, but I've heard a lot of talk about that. Does this make a statement about the program and Stoops? And what do you think that statement would be?
Well, he stooped to a new low level. Yeah, that's probably going to be a headline across many newspapers in the next 3 days. Yeah. Just very disappointed. Really, really was, because I always kind of like Bob Stoops. Even though he's not the most likable guy in the world necessarily, he's not exactly Mr. Charm or anything. But I always thought he was probably a pretty good guy, pretty upstanding, high character. and I just thought better of him than this. This reminds me of Tom Osborne with Lawrence Phillips up in Nebraska those years ago when they were making a run at a national title. Same situation where you got a star athlete, beating up on a woman or pushing her downstairs or dragging her downstairs, as the case may be. Sickening stuff, and well, I think I've made my point pretty clear.
Yeah, and there's a couple of drug charges. I believe they all were dismissed, but he still was booted from Missouri for a reason. So I don't know.
Smoke of some sort.
Right. I personally don't think, as far as a Big 12 team making it to the playoffs, they'd have to go undefeated. There's no conference championship. In my opinion, that team is going to have to go undefeated in order to make it. And I only see Oklahoma this year capable of that. Okay, Red Raider 28 wants to know, with this whirlwind situation revolving Nigel Bethel being dismissed from the team, as far as how does that affect Tech's recruiting strategy for the position moving forward, going on to 2015 and beyond? Specifically for 2015, Tech has 9 offers out. 4 of those are already committed elsewhere. The guy who I think most of you are keeping your eye on is Gilmer's Chris Boyd. He's a 4-star guy. He visited either the last week or the week before. He has said before he's high on Texas Tech, among many other schools that are after him, including Texas A&M. One of the things to consider, though, as I said in the story, that ran earlier this week that I wrote, I'm more concerned about Nigel Bethel's dismissal as far as this season. Moving forward, if you look at the 4 guys that were the top 4 corners coming out of spring, they're all sophomores. And then you have Middleton, who's a junior. You have some other guys, Josh Keys is a guy who is expected to play safety, but Coach Wallerstedt and a whole bunch of other coaches, a couple other coaches, mentioned his ability to play corner. He played corner his freshman year, and he played it well in JUCO. So he's a guy who could move over there, who had 2 years of eligibility. So they're young. They have a couple freshmen coming in. They're supposed to be really good. So they looking at the 2015 season and beyond, they could be set up with a pretty, and not just at cornerback, but the entire secondary is relatively young and could be really good in the year 2015.